learn, change, grow.
Hello, Unlearner. Welcome to this episode of the Unlearners podcast. And we are continuing on the note of our Rethinking Learning and Education season that has just been so jam-packed. So I'd like to encourage you as you kick off this conversation, if you haven't had a look at any of the episodes in this season, from guests such as futurists and guests that have started educational institutions that are completely out of the norm. Every single episode is all about how we rethink, unlearn, and reimagine education altogether. So I'd love to encourage you, if you haven't had a chance to go back and have a look at some of our episodes. Today's episode, however, is no different really from every single episode that we've had, and it continues to allow us to go a little bit deeper, but in one specific area around learning and education. And today's episode is probably going to be one of my favorites of the season, primarily because it speaks to an area within the learning experience that is so pivotal. And that's what we call the ECD phase. And Candice is going to speak a little bit more about what that means and what that looks like. But that's that early development segment of a child's education and their evolution, their journey around learning, their journey around understanding what it means to be an individual. And I often say that school is such a pivotal environment because that's where a lot of our conditionings are either started or founded or reinforced over time. And it becomes so critical that those of us that work within the early childhood development space then think about how we can show up better. And the title of this episode, before I introduce you to the amazing Candice, is The Kids Are Watching and How Early Environments Shape Who We Become. In other words, learning starts early. So how do you and I, regardless of what role we play within education, think about that, practice it, and become more intentional? Candice is the CEO at The Unlimited Child, and she's going to tell us all about the amazing work that they do. But Candice, finally, welcome to the Unlearners podcast.
Thanks, Anil. It's lovely to be here.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come through. I know you've got a busy schedule. I mean, you are all over, not just all over the continent, but you are all over the world doing phenomenal work, engaging in great conversations, but specifically around this area of a child's learning and development. Just tell us a little bit about what the Unlimited Child does, just for context.
So the Unlimited Child is a wonderful organization. It was founded by the Unlimited Group, and Ian Buchan is our founder. So we've been in existence for quite some time now, but we are the largest organization of its kind in South Africa. Our beneficiary list has been more than 2.1 million children, 13,000 micro enterprises created as well. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what is the micro enterprise, as the ECD Center. And we are very happy to say that we also exist in 5 countries. So we work in South Africa, Lesotho, Zimbabwe, Malawi. And we have a wonderful work that we do in humanitarian aid camps, the refugee camps in Yemen, in the Middle East as well, all centered around early childhood development. And what we do is obviously work with children and women in the care economy.
I love that. That's incredible. I think every single time I hear about your work, it just it gives me such goosebumps. So tell us a little bit about those micro centers. What are those, and how do they fit into the bigger scheme of what the Unlimited Child does?
So I think it's a very exciting opportunity. So what we know is that in the care economy, we often have childminders. So these are wonderful women in our communities that are looking after children. However, what we realized as well is that these passionate individuals can only do so much. And what we want is we want to unlock their true potential of becoming early childhood development practitioners. So we go out there into communities and we search for these women, and we then train them with a age-appropriate curriculum-linked program. And it means that they can actually go back to their child minding facility or the ECD center, and they can now have a proper early childhood development program. But we don't just do that, because at the end of the day, you can train somebody, but if they do not have all of the toys and resources in their classroom to teach learning through play, it will be almost forgotten. So They are also able to have all of the toys and equipment, so we give that to them as well, completely free of charge. And the one thing we know is that you're going to have the toys and equipment, you're going to have the training, but most importantly, we also need to mentor and coach these individuals because they need to become sustainable enterprises in themselves. And that is what we also do. We have mentors and coaches in our communities. We also have some tech-based tools that we use as well, so that ultimately this woman in the community can actually now run her own ECD centers. She can start charging fees or get a government subsidy, so she can become financially viable as well. And most importantly, the children in her care now are school ready because they have an educational program that ensures that they reach the milestones and they can go into the classroom when they are able to, being completely ready for school as well.
It's so exciting. And I can tell just even as you're talking about it, your face always lights up when you talk about the work you do, even though you've done it for so long. So I want to go right to the foundation of this conversation, but also to what you do, Candice, by starting off with the idea of why it's important. What is it about those early years that make them so critical, whether it's our practitioners, whether it's the role parents can play, whether it's the role societies and communities can play? What is it that's such a big deal there in those early years? And maybe speak to some of the ages, what that age range is, and also what is the data telling us about those brains
Mm.
at that age?
So, we always say that a child under the age of 6 actually holds the greatest potential to change the world and to change society. So, when you start early and we lay the proper foundation, and this foundation is not just about the brain and the synapses and how everything connects, but it's actually just about the well being of a child as well. So, those are the most critical years. In our age categories, we have a babies group, we have
Mhm.
toddlers, and we have pre-grade R. So that ranges from 0 to 2, 2 to 4, and 4 to 6. So those are the most critical years of a child's life because this is when the brain forms and the all of the synapses meet as such, and it is where we actually lay the foundation for their future well-being. So there are many critical milestones. For example, these milestones are not just cognitive skills. So we know the
Mm.
numeracy and the literacy and all of that, but they also social and emotional skills as well. How do we respond in teamwork? How do we understand order? There's so many wonderful things that happen. And for us, we have to start early because if you start early, you will make sure that you have a country that has less taxes eventually, less teenage
Mm.
pregnancy, less reform programs such as prisons and those sort of things, because you've actually educated the nation as such. But for us, it's not just, like I said, about the child. It's also about forming relationships and bonds between parent and child. So we do also run parenting workshops as well within our ECD centers because primarily, and I think for all of us, we can think about what our parents did for us, but we have to
Mm.
skill our parents as well to be able to give them the resources on what to do specifically with their children. And most importantly, also the ECD practitioners or the owners of ECD centers play an absolutely vital role in ensuring that children are school ready as well.
I like that, and I think that there's such there's such an importance there as well that speaks to and so many different things, right? I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is the idea of access and what
Mm,
I have known or learned during especially my time within the education space is how during those, well, at least around 2 to 5 years of age, is that that's when we start to integrate ideas around access. So here's what I have access to, and here's what other kids have access to. But also here's the comparison thereof.
mm,
And then it's almost a conversation of going, oh, okay, so I'm the kind of child that can have these types of things, or I'm the kind of child that can't have these types of things, or can't have these types of conversation, or can't live in this neighborhood, or all of those types of things that are related to access start to form. And then over time, as we grow, all we're doing is we're speaking into or accessing or engaging according to what we think we can access. And I think what you're doing is phenomenal, Candice, because the communities you go into generally are some of the communities that do have these ideas and warped ideas around access, maybe because of marginalization previously or anything like that. But you're almost taking back that power and going, okay, how do we redefine what access looks like? And you can have a beautiful, enriching, quality education, even in the township or even in this area, wherever it is that you are. And I think that's quite important, in at least as far as I think about it. Any thoughts on that?
I think that's, yeah, I think important is putting it lightly. I think it's the most important thing that we could do. And especially with what we're doing
Mm,
at Unlimited Child, and so many others are doing as well, is that it's not, it's access, but it's high quality access. So what you see in an advantaged community is what you're seeing in the community that we're going into as well. So we're not treating the child any different, and we're not saying something is better than nothing. We're actually saying that the best will only do, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where you come from, or the community you grow up with. If you have education, it will literally change your life. It actually opens up so many doors, but not just for success in life, or what we think of as success in life, because a lot of people think, oh, success is maybe having this job and this car and this house. Success is not that. Success is actually having well-being and being happy in life, because you can actually have comprehension. You can find an honest day's way of work. You can raise a family. And I think this is what is so exciting for me, is that we provide opportunities to very marginalized communities. The quintiles that we work in is 1 to 3. So this is your rural and peri-urban or township areas. And this is where this sort of education is most needed. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to build a country that we all live in. So if we can benefit every single person, when we get a little bit older, we are also going to be benefited by this as well.
yeah, that's very true. And I guess to think about it like that makes the biggest difference, because then you understand that the trees that we're planting today, we're not necessarily going to sit in the shade of those trees, but those trees are going to provide shade for someone. It
Mm.
is going to make a difference down the line. And it's all about being willing to, I guess, put in that effort. And the other thing that I was thinking about as you were speaking as well, Candice, were adverse childhood experiences, our
Mm.
ACEs, and how that initially within the age groups that you work in, that's when we start to see the development of a lot of those. And I'll never forget, I have mentioned this on a previous episode, but someone once told me that back in the day, children used to run from school home to the safety of home. But nowadays, what we're having is a lot of children that are running from home to the safety of school. And this is exactly one of the reasons why. And as you say, you get that quality access to quality education, and the environment. I think more than just the education,
Mm.
it's the environment that's created that makes the biggest differences, so that even in an environment where children are experiencing ACEs at a rate that we haven't seen before, that are informed
Mm.
by different climates, economic, socioeconomic, but the school can literally become one of those ecosystems that supports children through, whether it's a healing journey or just through reprogramming their nervous systems. It's actually really, really, really profound, the impact that that has. Any stories or any just exciting things that you've seen over time, having done this work for quite a while?
Well, I think just to come back to what you were saying, Sanele, I think that this is why the ECD Center is so important in communities, because it is providing a safe space for children,
Mm,
and it's also allowing for access to resources as well. So within our program for ECD Center owners or practitioners, we not only provide an educational service, we actually also
mm,
provide a service where we teach practitioners how to manage their finances, how to do a balance sheet, a simple balance sheet, how to access a government
love it.
subsidy, but also how to access government services. So, for example, the Department of Social Development has social workers that can be called upon when there is,
Mhm.
for example, abuse in the home, or there are situations where a child needs help. So I think that these services and ECD, or the services or the care economy, provide so much more than just education. It is the place for children to come to, because unfortunately we live in a day and age where this is not always prevalent. So children need a
Mm,
safe space. So I'm so happy that you spoke about that as well, because when I spoke about the children's well-being, it's not just educational well-being; it's a well-being on a whole.
yeah.
We also have a beautiful program within our ECD centers where it's called the Values Initiative. And
Hmm.
our chairperson of our board, Wallace Watt, who is part of the founding family of the Unlimited Child, has these wonderful ideas around affirmation. And we actually do affirmations in our ECD centers where we almost say, I am confident, I am kind, and we want children to really believe and have the confidence in themselves. So that's one of the things that we do. But in terms of some of the stories, there are so many that we have. I think for me personally, it's just watching the improvement of the ECD community and the care economy. Because for us, it's actually the women that shine that light on it. It's not the Unlimited Child is a part of that journey. We partner in that journey. We will never be where we are as an organization without the women that we work with. And I think there's a wonderful story for one of our ECD centers in Hammersdale. And it started off as a one-room center, obviously informally based in the back of somebody's house. And that center has now been running for the last 14 years. And they have managed to procure their own land from the tribal council. They also have 5 classrooms on that land. We also have the ECD center owner as such. So she started off with her 1 classroom, and now she has 5 classrooms. She has 5 women that she pays that work for her. So, and she's also sent her own children through to university and been able to have a wonderful life on her own. So it's such a success story in terms of creating a viable micro enterprise. It's not a micro one anymore, it's actually a macro one. But more so than that, in her community, the children that have gone through her center have always maintain their school readiness milestones. So we use independent studies to actually look at that. And she has had the most magnificent children through her ECD center, and she's done that through our partnership. So for me, that is one of the greatest joys, when you actually see women grow themselves and children actually go into school being ready for that as well. So that's one of them. But I mean, I could also talk very beautifully about, I'm sure some would know, the Unlimited Child also won the Khalifa Award for Education for Best Curriculum and Program in Africa and the Middle East. So, but I think that, it's quite funny. I mentioned 2 stories that are quite different from each other, but for me, it's actually all the same, because whether success is not always the spotlight or the what is the right word, the media exposure. Success is what we're doing for the person who's on the ground.
Yeah, it's not the accolades, is it? It's the impact.
Yes.
Yeah. And you
Um,
definitely are making an impact, at least from the perspective of those that support your work, that are watching what you do, that are involved in some way within that ecosystem. The Unlimited Child has really built a beautiful brand that so many people recognize, but also a lot of people associate with true impact. I mean, you and I have spoken about my grandmother and her creche and all of these
yes.
beautiful things. I mean, her ECD center, we don't call them that anymore. I mean, here and there you might use that word, but
And we all do.
right? So, Candice, I want to come back then to here, and as we look towards the end now of our conversation together, with us having established just how critical those early years are, and you having spoken about the immense and amazing work that you do, can you talk me through what it actually looks like? What models you are actually working with that ensure that the critical nature of those years and the growing mind in those early childhood development ages is well looked after, is well supported, so that anyone who's listening to this or watching this can go, fine, I don't necessarily run an ECD center, or maybe I'm not a parent, but when I do encounter a child within this age group, here's some of the key, almost like a checklist, right? Here are some of the key factors that I need to consider to make sure I'm doing right by them, so to speak. Any thoughts on that?
It's such a good question, Zanetta. So I think I'm going to answer it in a twofold way. I think that every single one of us, whether we have children or not, or whether we are in an ECD center or not, has the privilege of actually trying to make our society better for children. And that actually goes down to even the way we pay our taxes, as small as that. It's so important that we try to ensure that the fiscus has enough money so that there are subsidies for children, that we actually grow those subsidies and we do not become anti-subsidies, if I can say it like that, because we are starting from a base that is quite critical and has always not been well funded in South Africa. I think there is a change coming, and we hope that that change will be maintained as such. But when we look at, for example, organizations such as Unlimited Child, we also are a nonprofit organization and we rely on charitable giving as such. But for us, our cost model is quite low. We do also have a founding partner, the Unlimited, so we do have a low cost model. However, we are providing the seed funding to the ECD center as such, or the creche as such. So for us, we are saying, here's your training, which is completely free and it's curriculum linked. We also know it's high quality training. Here's all of your toys and equipment, and here's your mentoring and coaching, which is a huge cost model. However, when we then partner with other systems, and the systems that I speak about is the government subsidy, we know that in year 2, even if we continue with our mentoring and coaching, which we do, we know that the ECD center can then access a government subsidy. So this is for nutrition of children, and this is to pay, for example, salaries of the women taking care of children. So that's so important. But it's not just government subsidies, and this is where the twofold perspective comes in. It's also people in communities that can work with ECD centers directly. We have wonderful partners where, for example, there's infrastructure needs that are taken care of for ECD centers. We have a program with FNB where it's Adopt an ECD center, and they go in and actually work directly with the ECD center that is on our network. So we give them the names, the contact details, the due diligence will be done on our side, and they will go in and directly work with the women in the community. And when I say infrastructure, it can be something as simple as putting up proper fencing so that this creche owner, ECD center owner, can actually access the government subsidy because they have met a certain requirement. So there's all these requirements as well. And even as individuals, we can be part of the solution to provide perhaps finances, or to look at organizations either like ourselves, Unlimited Child, to donate to, or even look at whether they can actually help their local ECD center as well, even with the nutrition pack. One of our greatest partnerships is actually with Gift of the Givers, and I think they're very well known. I don't even have to say anything more about that, but the one thing that they do as well is when you actually donate to them, they have worked with Unlimited Child in the past to provide nutrition to our children, because a child that's not fed is a child that cannot learn. So for us, we will never work with the center if the children are not being fed. And how we do so is by getting these partnerships so that feeding does happen. So I think that we all have a part to play. And whether it's just also, if I can say, finding out about how our children are doing. So, we need to have a society where we really care enough, and we want it to be different than what has been so far.
And that's a big part of it, isn't it? That caring, because that's where it starts. All of the genuine, at least, well-intentioned actions start from caring, the ones you can sustain, because you can maintain any habit when you care enough about the cause. Yeah. And how do you ensure that, Candice? Because having gone through being an educator, I know that within the context, and this is something that is a trend globally, is that depending on the perception that there is around teaching in your region, in your country, on your continent, it does inform how much people care. And whether your practitioners or whether your teachers are actually people who go into it because they feel, and I'm going to use the word here because it does associate, but because they feel called in some senses. So how do you, when you are working or sourcing these practitioners, just how do you measure that? How do you measure whether someone cares?
So you know you're an unlearner and you know you are unlearning. Now the question is, what kind of unlearner are you? And yes, there are 4 different types. Not just what kind of unlearner are you, but also how do you best unlearn? Because depending on what kind of unlearner you are and how you best unlearn, when you start off a journey of transforming, learning, changing and growing, changing how you see the world, shifting your perspective, asking questions, getting curious, expanding, evolving, we all do it differently, depending, of course, on the type of unlearner you are. So let's jump right into the 4 different types, and then you can go over, take the quiz, and find out what kind of unlearner you are, how you best unlearn, and where to start. Because once you know what type of unlearner you are, you know exactly how to step into your journey of evolution and transformation. So let's get right into the 4 different types. As we go through them, let me know which one you think you are, but don't just let me know, go over, take the quiz, and then find out. 1, the quiet disruptor. Maybe that sounds like you. 2, the brave beginner. 3, the conscious rebel. 4, the gentle rebuilder. Maybe that's you. So what's your unlearning type? How do you unlearn best? Go over to theunlearners.com, take the quiz today, find out what kind of unlearner you are. As soon as you find out, go over into the comments of this video and let me know. Once you know your type, go ahead, share this quiz with other unlearners in your life so that they also understand how best they unlearn. And maybe you can already suspect exactly what type your friends are, or your family members are, or maybe that colleague who sits in the corner, you know exactly what kind of unlearner they are. Not sure? Pass the quiz over to them so they know what kind of unlearner they are and how they can step fully into their unlearning journey.
It's such a good question. I think for us, because we're working with childminders that are already in existence, it's very interesting because they do already care. And I think that once you are around a child, I think that your caring level goes up a notch. So they might have started
Yeah.
because maybe they felt like, oh, I could make a little bit of money, I could look after people's kids. It's not so bad. And then once they actually come into our program, the caring actually gets extended because it's so interesting, Zanele. It doesn't just become about the child. It's actually about the human being that is working with the child. Because we are upskilling our ECD practitioners and we're making this a well-respected job. Because at the end of the day, when we're dealing with human beings, we also need to realize as human beings, we all have needs. And we need to have a job that we respect and we believe other people respect. We need to have the barriers of entry also changed. So the moment we have programs where we're providing all of the seed items, the equipment, the toys, we are actually changing their mindset so that you can always have passion, but your passion can be grown if you have support. So that's the environment that we are providing for our ECD practitioners. And when they feel that they are in that supportive environment, and like I spoke about, we have a mentoring and coaching aspect of our program as well. And you know, we have one of the beautiful sayings of the Unlimited Child, and we say this as one of our ways of being as an organization. We always say that you might be on your own, but you're never alone. So I think that creating that supportive environment makes all of the difference, because passion is certainly not something that you can, I don't believe you can completely measure it. It's not even something you can have a gut feel about because we're all human beings. Things could be different, and we also don't understand people's circumstances. People are three-dimensional. We don't know what's going on in their home. So, for us, instead of trying to measure their passion, we try to instill a viewpoint that you are supported. So, your passion can take you far, but together we can take you farther.
I like that. I like the idea of ways of being, that this is part of our ways of being, or like a culture, right? It's more like an organizational culture.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Oh, well, I really like that. And I think it shows. And I think you must be doing really incredible work if at the level where we define some of these, all the way down to the individuals that are,
Mm.
in our case, child facing and facing our actual practitioners on the ground are all speaking the same language. It means that something is there, that love and that care we spoke about, it means it is translating. And this is the other thing as well, Candice, as we wrap this conversation up, that I think maybe is a conversation to be had, whether it's a policy conversation, a regulation conversation going forward, is how do we then integrate the two? Because at the end of the day, this is, like you were saying, an enterprise opportunity. It is an opportunity for individuals to actually earn and, improve their standard of living and
Mm.
all of these amazing things. But it also is a deeply impactful space, and so the value needs to be speaking to each other. One, the value for all of our practitioners, our teachers, everyone who's on the ground actually doing the work, but also on the other side of it is our children. But what I loved about what you said is that it's a society. This is all about making society better for our children. So it's not necessarily just about them, but the role you and I can play, regardless of where we fall, especially with our younger children, is making the society, playing our part and understanding that somewhere down the line, a child is going to be impacted by what
Mm.
you do, whether it's just not running a red light on the road, just that. Because I mean, the repercussions could be huge, and somewhere in that incident could be a young mind that will never be the same because of the action that you took and you thought it was devoid of impacting a child. So I just, that perception for me is mind blowing, and understanding that it's not necessarily about being in an ECD center. It's about
Mm.
understanding the role that you play in that bigger ecosystem. Any closing words to wrap us up? This has been so good.
Oh, but well, just to say thank you, Zanetta, for shining a light on early childhood development and the systemic change that we do need to have as a country. And I just want to say one last thing. I think when you spoke about
Sure.
policy, I think that when we remember that policies are for people, that's when we can make a difference. So I think that's how I would like to end our conversation as well.
Oh goodness. I feel like you just opened up another topic now. We could spend another 10 minutes.
Definitely.
But that's true. It's so, so true. And maybe that's where we need to gravitate towards back as a global community, is how do we rebalance the scales or tip the scales over so that we do have that understanding and we lead or we write policy and legislation based on the idea that at the end of the day, it's all about us. It's all about the people. And I'll
Mm.
never forget, I did a session, and I don't know what your thoughts are on this. But it was around healthcare. And one of the speakers stood up, and it was the conversation around data and the ownership of data. So it was a highly controversial conversation. And he stood up, he was a keynote speaker, and he said, data belongs to society. And
Mm.
everyone was like, no, my data is mine, and all of these things. And his point was healthcare data and understanding the complexities of illnesses, medication, and what's worked and what hasn't is such a beautiful service to society that unless we have that data, we cannot improve and we cannot move forward. And once he unpacked it, everyone went, okay, fine, maybe data does in a way belong to society. So what are your thoughts on that when it comes to data around early childhood development and managing that? I know this is now another can of worms, but
Yes.
just to close us off.
I think it's such an interesting subject. So for us, and I can speak very personally about what we do at Unlimited Child. So we do have a lot of data because obviously we're the largest in the country, and we are also trying to move into a world where we use AI as well to determine some of the low technology basis that we can actually feed back to ECD practitioners. In fact, we have this beautiful work that we are currently doing as well, where we do feedback loops. So, for example, you could send a message on a Friday afternoon and you asked a few questions, and on Monday, you get a message first thing in the morning that says, do you want to know what you can do this week to make everything a little bit better and more fun in your ECD center? Which is awesome. And that all relies on data. We can't do it without data. However, the one thing that we do is we actually anonymize data. So it means that we can also try to filter out what are the big data points that we need to examine, and we actually do that. So there's a anonymization piece, and we also have a piece where that data actually belongs to the individual. So they have a history of what data we have on them and how that could be used for betterment. So for me, I think that when I look at it, it's such an important thing where we look at the needs of society, and we also clarify how data is actually used. It's not used against us, it's actually used for us. So even for us, AI and even generative AI is something that is completely new. And what we have done this year is we've run a program with all of our ECD practitioners. So we're still in the process of our 12,000. I think we at about 8,000, where we actually had data conversations. We went out to our cluster workshops and we spoke about the use of data. We also had a wonderful, and I think it's such a, it speaks to my heart, where we just assume that people have email addresses. We think, okay, if you're going to have an account, you're probably going to have an email address. You're probably going to have WhatsApp on your phone. We just make these assumptions, and it's actually not the case. So we have been able to, in our network, have 12,000 individuals that now have a specific email address that they can not only use for services related to the ECD center, but also services related to government access, government portals, and also how to use the internet where it's not data heavy. So, for example, how do we, be able to access information? So, just coming back to it, I think that what I'm trying to say is that when we make it clear for everyone in society, we make a society feel safe and secure. And when we give that security, people can actually act in a bigger picture and in a societal need. So for us, it's not just even about a data conversation, it's actually about not keeping knowledge only for what we view as highly intelligent people. We actually keep knowledge for everyone and we equalize society. So I think that that's one point that we are certainly trying to do at our organization. But Zanele, for me, it speaks very deeply to my heart. I obviously come from a very specific science and applied maths, or applied science and applied maths background. And I didn't view myself any different from anyone else. But if I tell people I'm an astrophysicist, they go, oh, wow. But, I always find it funny, and I want to tell the story. I don't view myself any different from anyone else, because I think that with the same opportunity, everyone could have done the same thing. So when I view even what I do now, and it's vastly different from what I studied as such, I view the world as such that we need to have a world view. Everyone needs to come to the same place and realize that they have the same opportunities. I mean, even for the Unlimited Child, our tagline is unlimiting the dreams of everyone. So we shift the lives of all children. And that's why I think that even when it comes to data usage and also AI, AGI, we are so excited because we really think that this will be the grand leveler of society, but we need to bring everyone together to the same place.
I think that's a fantastic note to end off on, Candice. After I took us off on a tangent, I'm going to bring us right back. I'm going to bring us back. to where we're supposed to be. But I think it's such a fantastic note to close off on. And that theme or that golden thread of the access just keeps coming back. And just how important it is. And you mentioned, I mean, anything from partnerships to supportive environments to that mini sort of ecosystem that we're building is how do you and I, regardless of where we are, think about the implications of our everyday decisions and our societal, I'm going to call them obligations here and there, but how they actually, at the end of the day, are helping to create the world that our children are going to grow up in and develop in and learn in and practice in and then become adults in as well. Really wonderful. Candice, thank you so much for your time. This has just been such an amazing conversation. Thank you for coming through.
Thanks, Anila. I also really appreciate it. And it was, really great having the conversation.
Thank you so much. All right, unlearners, thank you very much for your time as well. Like I mentioned earlier on, if you haven't had an opportunity to go through any of the episodes that we've done as part of our Rethinking, Reimagining Education and Learning, please definitely do so. It's been myself, Zanele Njapa, the Unlearning Lady, and today I was joined by Candice Potgieter, CEO at The Unlimited Child. Thank you so much for taking the time. All of the best and happy unlearning. Bye for now.
The Unlearners. Learn, change, grow.